Pleasure to have our friend, one of the great conservatives really in my lifetime, Chairman Jim Jordan of the Judiciary Committee in the House. Mr. Chairman, I want to congratulate you and the Republican leadership. You got this Antisemitism Awareness Act to the floor of the House. You had a massive vote in favor. Tell us about this.
Yeah, I mean, look, what's going on college campuses where you have people calling for the destruction of our dearest and closest friend, the state of Israel. You have people engaged in conduct and threats and harassment and attacks on Jewish students. And this says, stop it. This is wrong. And we want this definition that President Trump supported that doesn't infringe on First Amendment liberties, doesn't infringe on free speech rights. We want this adopted. And this is what a legislative body can do when you have this kind of crisis going on in college campuses around the companies. You can step up and actually lead and pass legislation that is good. And then we're going to continue to do the oversight that began yesterday, where we sent a letter, Mark, to Secretary Blinken, Secretary Mayorkas, saying, hey, what are these at Columbia, for example, Mark, 55% of the student body is here on a visa. How many of the students...
Whoa. Wait a minute. Slow down just a second. 55% of the students at Columbia are foreign students?
They're on on some kind of visa, most of them student visas. We want to know how many of those students are involved in this radical activity on college campuses, giving pro-Hamas chants, attacking Jewish students. We want to know who they are. And if you know the answer to that first question, then second question is the State Department looking to revoke and in the process of revoking their visas? And if the State Department has revoked their visas, is the Department of Homeland Security removing them from the country? Because the law, the Immigration and Nationality Act is clear. If you're espousing or promoting terrorist activity, you're not allowed to be here as a foreigner. You don't get a visa. So those are the three fundamental questions we posed to Secretary Blinken and Secretary Mayorkas. The Judiciary Committee sent to those individuals yesterday. And that is, to me, where we need to go with the... Now that we've passed this legislation out of the House, we'll see what Chuck Schumer and the Senate does, but then we need to do the oversight and find out 30% at Harvard, 58% at Northeastern University, and it's really high with these Ivy League schools. But when you got a majority of the students are here on a visa, that to me is something that needs to be investigated.
You think you're going to have a problem in the Senate getting this passed?
I don't know. You just never know. With the radical left that now controls the other party, you just never know. You would think not, but I mean, look, we've passed good immigration legislation. We've sent over there. We've sent all kinds of good legislation over there that the Senate hasn't taken up. I look at House HR2, the immigration bill we sent a year ago that they won't take up. I think it's an open question.
Do you think some of the Republicans will vote against it?
Well, I mean, look, we've spent this whole Congress investigating this censorship of First Amendment free speech rights of Americans when the Biden administration was, pressuring big tech. So I understand the concern there. I was satisfied with the language in the resolution, in the legislation that passed that was sponsored by Mr. Lawler out of New York. I was satisfied with that. I thought it safeguarded First Amendment liberties and dealt with this terrible situation we see across our country on college campuses. So there may be some, because we had a handful here, but we had 70 Democrats vote against it. And these weren't, in my mind, weren't the Democrats who were, focused on protecting First Amendment liberties. These were people who kind of come from the hard left position that is now, unfortunately, controlling the Democrat Party.
Honestly, as a constitutional, there's no First Amendment issue here. Nobody's being denied the right to speak as normal human beings speak. But as we see on our college campuses, the American people aren't stupid. They're not deaf. They're not blind. Yeah. They support Israel. They support their own country. They see what's taking place. These are violent attacks. Yep. These are efforts to prevent Jewish students from going to class. They're pulling down the American flag and replacing it with the Palestinian flag. Now, they have a right to do it, but they do not have the right to do it on a college campus. That's not their property. Yeah. They can do it on their home all they want. And we can go on and on and on about these new First Amendment purist constitutionalists who don't know what the hell they're talking about. And by the way, Congressman, I don't hear them talking that way on the left, certainly, when pro-lifers are arrested in front of abortion clinics, and I don't hear them talking that way when parents are being monitored by the FBI. And I do have a question for you. We have the FBI director who was asked by this guy Holt on NBC, are you monitoring these protests? And he says, no, we don't do that. Now, we know he does do that. He won't even answer you, Congressman, when he was in front of the committee on whether or not they'd infiltrated the January 6th protests. We're not going to answer that. Yeah. But he's happy to say they're not monitoring this. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I mean, and they're happy to have their field office in Richmond put out a memorandum talking about if you're a pro-life Catholic, you're an extremist. They're happy to have the Attorney General of the United States put out a memorandum that says if you're a parent going to a school board meeting, you need to be investigated. But no, we're not monitoring this crazy activity that looks really organized when you look at the tents that are up and the money coming in, and it sure seems like there's some people being paid to come in there, not even students, some paid agitators coming in. So that looks like it's pretty organized. But no, they're not monitoring that. Remember, this is the same FBI can't tell us who planted the pipe bombs on January 6th. This is the same Justice Department that can't tell us who leaked the Dobbs draft opinion, the one that led to an assassination attempt on one of our Supreme Court justices. And this is the same Justice Department that can't tell us who put the cocaine in the White House. But, we got to investigate parents, and we have to, we got to look at pro-life Catholics, and we got to retaliate against whistleblowers who come to our committee and tell us what's going on. That's the concern, I think, so many Americans. And this is the same FBI, maybe most importantly, who went after President Trump over the last 8 years.
Now, we know who's funding these groups. I mean, I've reported on this to a great extent. The George Washington Extremism Project has. NGO Monitor has. There's a Hamas funding network. There's Qatar putting billions into our colleges and universities. There's the Confucius Institutes with the Communist Chinese. We actually have Iran and Iraq paying money into colleges and universities. But we also have George Soros, other multi-billionaire Democrats, dark money using their normal campaign fundraising operations. The Democrat Party is funding this. Is this one of the reasons why the Biden administration really doesn't want to look at this?
Yeah, I mean, who knows? I think it's just pure politics, probably relative to one of the key swing states, the state of Michigan, and what's happening there. That seems to be what polling would indicate. So, the same money that's funding these prosecutors around the country who don't want to prosecute criminals who do terrible things. Probably some of that same money is financing this effort on college campuses, if I was guessing.
Do you think, Mr. Chairman, that Antony Blinken will be in the United States long enough to actually read your letter? I mean, I've never seen anything like this. This guy's everywhere. And by the way, everywhere he goes, he sets a fire. He keeps going to Israel, not to pressure the terrorists, not to pressure Iran, but they keep attacking the prime minister, attacking the IDF, attacking Israel. You've been in Congress a while. Have you ever seen anything like this?
I have not. What the ICC is talking about relative to Prime Minister Netanyahu. And the part that maybe bothers me the most is back during the State of the Union, when the president said in his about two-thirds through his speech, when he said that we're going to the United States is going to build a temporary port to give supplies to Gaza. And I was sitting beside a colleague of mine who was a West Point graduate, great friend, and I turned to him and I said, isn't it sort of rule 101 of warfare is if you want one side to win, you don't give supplies to the other side. But we had the commander-in-chief of the United States saying, we're going to supply the enemy, the people who launched the terrorist attacks, who elected Hamas, launched the terrorist attacks against our dearest and closest friend, the state of Israel. We're going to set up a temporary pier and give supplies to those people. That makes no sense to me. And then the very next week, Chuck Schumer says, Israel, you need a new prime minister. What? What are they talking about? How does that help the good guys in this situation win? I just do not understand it.
Let me ask you, what is the position of the House Judiciary Committee on the jurisdictional authority of the International Criminal Court and its so-called legitimacy? What is the position? Isn't our position is it's illegitimate? We want nothing to do with it?
Yeah, I don't know anywhere in the Constitution where it talks about the International Criminal Court. I mean, where is that? Like, what are we talking about here? This is an ally, our best ally, the state of Israel. And we should be, like, condemning this. Like, this is craziness. But I don't
Biden
know.
won't.
I don't know.
Biden won't speak out.
No, he won't. He won't. And again, it's scary that the left has that much control now of one of the two major political parties in our great country. I don't know what to say. It's just like who'd have ever thunk it? Who'd have ever thought we'd get to this position?
But let me ask you this:
States doesn't do it.
If they try and do something like this, would we, the United States, because the speakers talked about this, other Republicans have talked about it, said you do this, we're going to sanction you, we're going to take actions. Would that come out of your committee?
It may. I haven't talked to the Speaker or House Counsel how that would be done. If it'd be done just as a House resolution, a resolution we first developed in the committee, I'm sure we would be involved. I feel like we have some great lawyers who are part of our staff on the committee, and we put this together and make the arguments, whatever we have to do. But I don't know if that would be just a House position or if it come through our committee and then be part of the House position. But I'm sure we'd be involved.
What is it that we could do? President Trump talked about sanctioning them too. He wanted nothing to do with this. But here's the problem. It's actually bigger than Netanyahu and Israel, because Israel does not accept their jurisdiction. We don't accept their jurisdiction. So this court can claim jurisdiction over a sovereign country and then issue arrest warrants for a president, just as they could do for us, or they could do to you or our diplomats or whatever. We can't allow that.
No, of course not. We're separate nation states. That's not some one world entity kind of deal. That's just ridiculous. That goes contrary to our Constitution, contrary to Israel, their Constitution, and they're a sovereign country, just like the United States is a sovereign country. But we have to stand up and say this is wrong, because when we say it as the leader of the world, as the greatest country in the world, that has huge implications and significance for everything else, and keeps these other countries from going out and attacking, again, our ally, our dear friend, the state of Israel.
I just feel like Biden wants to put Trump in prison, and he wants Bibi overthrown. I mean, what kind of a thug is this? I'm just being honest with you, that he sits there in the Oval Office, he's issuing fiats on women's sports, on what kind of car you can drive. I'll go on. It's like, whatever he talks about Trump, democracy's threatened, we'll have a dictatorship. What the hell does he think he is?
Yeah, and this is something. So Alvin Bragg is charging President Trump with conspiring to interfere with the 2016 election. Jack Smith is charging President Trump with conspiring to interfere with the 2020 election. How about the real conspiracy? The real conspiracy is Alvin Bragg, Letitia James, Jack Smith, and Fonnie Willis conspiring to interfere with the 2024 election. And I think the American people see that loudly, see that clearly, understand it, and that's why what President Trump's up 7.6 points in the latest CNN poll, because they see it for what it is. This is a joke. Everyone knows that case in New York is a joke. We've released a transcript of Mr. Pomerantz when we interviewed this guy, the guy who was the catalyst for Alvin Bragg even bringing this ridiculous case, the guy who wrote the book. It's the number of times he took the fifth in that deposition was unbelievable. But that was the catalyst. The guy who wrote the book and was out to get Trump volunteered to work for Alvin Bragg solely for the purpose of going after President Trump.
Thanks for all you do, Congressman. We really appreciate you here, and keep it up. All right, God bless you.
Keep up the great work.
All right, be well. Be well.